What do you mean? Ongoing treatment. Tony practically loomed over her. I hope you don't think the state is going to pay for all that. Maria flinched, then sighed. Well, they'll cover some of the medications, but you know what kind those are. We'll have to buy most of them ourselves. But Jenny is being registered for disability. She'll get a pension. Tony let out a harsh laugh. Are you serious? You know those pensions are pocket change. He turned to his daughter, who was lying with her face to the wall, and then whispered to his wife, Maria, there are plenty of facilities in the world where people like her live. Let's get Jenny admitted. They'll look after her there. And all the treatment is free. Maria gasped. Tony, what are you talking about? Are you joking? That's your daughter. Your daughter, do you understand? So what if she's my daughter? Other people are proud of their daughters. They go for walks, do things. What am I supposed to do with this daughter? Starve to death? You know as well as I do, if the doctors couldn't help, then no medicine is going to help her. What's the point of pouring money down the drain? Or do we not have anything else to spend it on? Maria stared at her husband, unable to believe that it was really him saying these things, the man she had lived with for over 10 years. Tony, this isn't serious. I don't even want to hear this. Stop it. Tony looked at her intently. You're just being emotional. Cool down, think about it, and you'll realize I'm right. I'm giving you 3 days to agree with me. Maria asked. And what happens in 3 days? In 3 days you'll see. He turned and stormed out of the room as if scalded. She closed her eyes, counted to 10. A year ago, their Jenny had fallen down the stairs. Tony had never gotten around to finishing the railing. He never had the time. The girl was running, she tripped, and there was nothing to grab onto. 3 surgeries, almost half a year in the hospital, and the doctor's verdict. A wheelchair, and only for a few hours a day. The rest of the time she had to lie down. Something was still wrong with her spine. They had bought this house at Tony's insistence. He decided that living in an apartment was not prestigious enough, now that he had been promoted at work. There was still a lot of work to be done on the house. Maria had told him it would be expensive, because Tony himself wasn't particularly handy, and he spent most of his time in front of the television. But he had so vehemently insisted that all normal people live in houses. So all their money went into renovations and alterations. And just as the house began to look like a proper home, this tragedy struck. Maria didn't care about the house. She didn't care about anything. Only one thing was important: to heal Jenny no matter what the doctors said. For 3 days, her husband was silent, as if Maria had offended him. She tried not to provoke him. He'll get over it, she thought, then he'll apologize. But in 3 days, she came home from work and saw suitcases by the door. Tony, what's this? Your things and Jenny's. I came home early today to pack everything up. What do you mean, things? I don't understand. What's not to understand? You don't think I should spend my whole life on medicine, do you? So, good riddance to you. Are you kicking us out of our own home? Tony laughed. You've never been particularly smart. Have you forgotten that when we bought the house, we put it in my mother's name to pay less for the registration? You don't have time for worldly matters. So on your way. I hope we never meet again. Tony theatrically threw the door open. I hope I don't have to use force. Maria, in a daze, took the bags and gently pushed the wheelchair in which Jenny was sitting. On the threshold, she turned around. Someday, we will definitely meet again. Tony laughed. Is that a threat? To survive, to meet again, as you say, you'll need a man. And who would want you with such baggage? So get lost. Good riddance to bad rubbish. He slammed the door with a bang. Maria didn't walk far, just until the house was out of sight. Then she sat on the nearest bench and burst into tears. Jenny started sniffling too. Mom, don't cry, okay? Please don't cry. You can take me. You know where Dad said. I won't be mad. Maria looked up at her daughter in horror. You heard everything? Yeah, I wasn't asleep. Maria jumped up and hugged her daughter. Never, do you hear me, never mention that again. Forget his words and forget him. I won't let anyone hurt you. And I won't let anyone hurt me either. And as for you, Tony, you just watch me. I'm declaring war. A friend of Maria's temporarily took them in. She almost fainted when she heard the whole story. And you're just going to let it go? No. At first that was my desire. But then I decided, no one is allowed to hurt Jenny. You know how much I love her and everything has to be okay. I have all the receipts, all the records of what was bought, where it went. So I'm going to court and I'll file for alimony and I'll fight for the house too. I don't want to live there, of course, but he will pay my daughter compensation. Tony just didn't understand what was happening. For 3 months now, he had been dragged through the courts on the statements of his little wife, who, which he had not expected at all, had also filed for alimony. She earns a good living, even more than he does. So why, if she has a higher salary, should he have to pay her alimony? And she was clinging to the house? That was just beyond the pale. The house was his mother's. He showed the documents, but this lawyer kept insisting that he return half the value of their sold apartment. And where was he supposed to get that kind of money? And Maria wouldn't even show her face to him. She was probably ashamed. She couldn't ruin her daughter's life, so she was going another way. He didn't understand what he had done to deserve such punishment. And then they found out at work that he had kicked out his wife. I mean, what business is it of anyone's? But no, now in every department they were gossiping about him. Like he had thrown a sick child out on the street. Well, he did. They should put themselves in his place. How would they like a life like that? Like being in prison, in chains. Ridiculous people. Until it happens to them, they're so eager to judge others. Well, you have one option. If you don't have your own savings, take out a loan and pay my client compensation. Otherwise, I'm taking the case to court. What court? Have you all gone mad? The house is in my mother's name. But the apartment was in both of your names. And by the way, we need to look into that. How did you manage to sell a property where a minor was living? That's a criminal offense. Tony remembered how it had all happened. He remembered the words of the realtors, tough guys in suits. They had told him that if this ever came out because of him, he wouldn't have legs to walk on. And how much do you need? His mother was screaming at him so loudly that the windows were probably rattling. What were you thinking, huh? What, you idiot? You should have done everything nicely, and now what? I'm not giving you any money. Don't expect it. Mom, go solve your own problems. I'm leaving. I've been dreaming of visiting all my friends around the world for a long time. Tony took out a loan. The money was transferred at a notary's office. He tried to talk to Maria, but she wouldn't even look at him, as if he were invisible. Oh, how he wanted to scream, to call her all sorts of names. A very unpleasant surprise was waiting for him at home. His electricity had been cut off because he hadn't paid the bill for several months. Maria used to take care of that. He didn't think it was necessary. He went to work in the morning angry and hungry. He couldn't even make coffee. He had to wear a shirt that wasn't fresh. He spent the whole evening on the phone with the power company. They told him a sum that almost made him faint. He counted his money. He would have almost nothing left. But sitting without electricity wasn't an option either. And at work, a surprise of its own was waiting for him. One that made Tony grab the doorframe so he wouldn't fall. The boss, looking him straight in the eye, announced, "Anthony, we no longer require your services. You can get your final paycheck from accounting." But the boss just turned and walked away. So he wasn't even given a chance to speak or an explanation for why he was being treated this way. Tony was furious. Did they think they could break him, that he wouldn't be able to pay off his loan? No way. He would pull through. Just yesterday he was in a taxi, and the driver was telling him about the kind of money he makes. Tony was stunned. It turned out that this guy, this taxi driver, was making much more than Tony, and he worked whenever he wanted. At home, he opened a bottle of cognac from the bar and picked up his phone. With his brains, he'd figure it all out in 5 minutes. Besides, his mother was gone, and she had brought her car to his yard so it wouldn't be parked on the street. Tony had a license, though he didn't particularly like to drive. Maria was the one who usually drove. Their car was in the garage, and now he remembered that it needed to be taken for repairs 3 or 4 months ago. Halfway through the bottle, he had completely figured out the app. See, I told you it's a piece of cake. Tony walked around the room. What if I give it a try? It's interesting. I'll just take one fare, that's it, and I'll be right back. He sat in the car, attached his phone, and rubbed his hands. Well, it's in the bag. He pulled out of the driveway and onto the road, and right in front of him, as if out of nowhere, a striped stick flew. Tony slammed on the brakes. Hello, officer. Your documents, please. Have you been drinking? Okay, step out of the car. And then everything was like a nightmare. Some kind of field sobriety test. The car was towed away somewhere. Tony was so flustered that he almost called Maria. Good thing he caught himself in time. He didn't get home until morning. So the car was at the impound lot. His mother was far away. The impound fees were racking up. He got a huge fine and his license was suspended. Everything was already so good that it seemed it couldn't get any better. When his mother returned, Tony had such an unpleasant conversation with her that he didn't even want to remember it. She just stopped talking to him. His salary at his new job, which he had managed to get, wasn't even enough to make his loan payments. The house was seized. He couldn't sell it. And then the day came when, opening the refrigerator door, Tony realized he had nothing to eat. Well, maybe he could sell this damn refrigerator since he didn't need it anymore. The money from the refrigerator ran out pretty quickly. Though, if he hadn't bought a bottle of cognac and a nice snack on the first day, he could have lasted another week. In the evening, he bought a newspaper. He needed to find some kind of side job urgently. He browsed through it for a long time, then came across an ad. A guy was offering services for digging gardens, mowing lawns, and he was charging a pretty penny. Not far from here was a private sector that gradually merged into a large village. And there, surely, every house had a garden. The houses were also different. Some were worse, some were better. Tomorrow was supposed to be his day off, so he would go there first thing in the morning. It was spring. Everyone obviously needed their gardens dug. Tony walked down the street, looking at the houses. This one looks normal, modern. And you can see through the fence that the garden hasn't been planted yet. Tony walked back and forth. No, he'd made up his mind. He would just knock and explain that he could dig the garden. He thought it was just a village here, but no. Satellite dishes on the houses, running water, and everything was so beautiful, well kept. Tony opened the gate and looked around. No dog, it seemed. Well, then forward. He didn't have to knock. There was a doorbell next to the door. Not even a minute had passed when the door opened. Hello. I can dig your garden, mow the lawn, do some odd jobs around the house. I don't charge much. He blurted it all out in one breath. Tony. He looked in surprise at the woman who had opened the door. Maria? What are you doing here? She suddenly smiled. I live here, Tony. This is my house and my yard. The door creaked behind Maria. Tony saw Jenny. She had grown noticeably, and she was walking on her own, leaning on a cane. Mom, there's a man here asking if we need our garden dug. Tony felt the blood rush to his head. His temples started throbbing. Are you mocking me? Why would I be? It seems to me that everyone gets what they deserve, don't they, Tony? The world is round, karma is a boomerang. I could go on forever. But most importantly, Maria smiled dazzlingly, remember I told you that we would definitely meet again. Tony, without another word, bolted from the yard. He had only gone a little way when he heard a car. He turned around. A gorgeous car was pulling up to Maria's house. A man with flowers got out, and Maria threw her arms around his neck. If you enjoyed the story, I hope you won't mind supporting me with your subscription and a comment below the video. Thank you very much. Stay with us. We have many more real-life and interesting stories. See you soon.